The Saints look like they need to go into a rebuild mode. Do they trade Olave for capital?
No.
For how much we just trade up for him?
No, sir.
That would be like trading away a first round pick for nothing at that point. But
No. Absolutely not.
Yeah, I was going to say absolutely.
Did you submit this question, Cotter?
no.
I mean, absolutely not.
I think there's a case to be made.
I mean, I'm sure you can make a case, but it's not every day you find a. I mean, look, he just stepped in and was like, "Oh, I'm going to do great things."
Here's the question: even if he's doing great things and their roster's on the downfall, what is that going to do?
No, you're right. You're right. It's not.
So,
but if you're going to trade away a piece, that's just taking pieces away from what you got.
Yeah, but you need youth. You need youth for a roster that's probably the oldest in the league and does not have any future.
He's like 22.
No, I understand that. But when he's 25 and the rest of the roster is horrible, what does that do for him? What does that do for the team?
Yeah, you're right.
So if you trade him and you get a first and then maybe like a third or a fourth, there are teams out there that will give you a package like that. Shit, we just talked about him. The Ravens will give you a first round pick and a third round pick for Chris Olave. And you can at least start to have a chance at a future. And that's all that draft picks are. They're a chance. So because you have a good player doesn't mean you should flip, does not mean you can't flip them for a future. Because that's what you need to do.
I think if they're like committed to being like a hard rebuild, then like maybe they would consider it. But like you said too, it's like, it's not for certain. Like they get a first and a fourth, like who's to say that either of those guys are a solid player? And I just think when you get a guy like Olave, like if Bears fans know this, they would love to have a guy like Olave. And you never know how fast like a rebuild could go in your favor too, if that makes sense.
That's a good point.
But no, that's an interesting situation.
I was just looking more into like the GM's perspective or whoever made that trade to trade up. Like, well, one, you traded away your first round pick for this year, which would be top 5. Sorry. But
Yeah, no, that was an
you know what I'm
atrocious
saying?
moment.
So then like, yeah, you got Olave, but then you trade him away. And then what if those picks work? You know, those picks don't work out. The GM's gone. And it's like, now you're just missing. And now you're just messing it up more and more and more and more. And I don't know where you would go from there, but like, I mean, he is probably a cornerstone right now.
Well, here's the reality. But here's the thing I'm going to say, because I always have to remind everyone of this. And like, because I agree. If I wasn't a Saints fan, I would agree. Like, objectively right now, yes, the Saints are a bad team. But here's the thing. I don't think the Saints like it's the roster that's the issue. Like we went from being almost a playoff team if the Niners lost that game against the Rams last year, the Saints would have been the last wild card slot. And that was what Trevor Siemian is our quarterback like 7 weeks. This thing is the issue is not really the roster. The issue is genuinely like the complete like shift in culture we had and the fact that just Dennis Allen's not the guy. Like we had the guy with our way worse roster last year. We have a way better roster this year, and Dennis Allen's not the guy, and we suck. We added a bunch of big name guys this offseason. Like, I don't think the issue is necessarily like the roster. We have Andy Dalton playing the best season of his career in the Saints uniform, and it's like the team still sucks. We still choke games, but the reality is like the O-line is good. I think we have a lot of productive players on defense. A lot of productive young guys. Like I don't think really, I genuinely stand out. Like I don't think the issue is the roster at all. Like I don't really point at anyone on the roster and be like, they're a total reason we're losing. It's really every single week. It's like, wow, that coaching staff is a fucking shit show. Pete Carmichael has no clue what he's doing. Dennis Allen has no clue what he's doing. I've never once this year like pointed at the roster and been like, we're not winning because we're missing this. Like it's not like that. It's like, no, we're not winning because we take our foot off the gas. We're not winning because we don't have a productive game plan. That's from my perspective. Like. For someone to watch the Saints so productive for all these years, it's not that the roster started sucking. It's that we started or stopped doing what worked. And shit is just completely like it's like a whole new identity and this isn't going to last. Like, I don't want to just can the roster because Dennis Allen's an idiot. Like that, like that, and that, I'll stand on that. Like we were a great team for a while and shit hasn't really even changed. Like
that was also your point with the Ravens too.
Wait, what?
I guess no, actually the opposite. Well, never mind.
Wait, I'm confused.
No, never mind.
I have a question for you though. So even if you were winning games, do you think Andy Dalton can win you a Super Bowl?
No, that's the point though.
Because
like
if you don't have...
The point is the problem is the most important position on the team. It's just not like...
You don't have it.
We're not serious right now. It's like the Saints aren't a good team, but it's because like they're just not built to be serious right now.
What's the point of middling out?
No, but that's the thing is if and when we replace Andy Dalton, which I think is like it's viable, and that's the thing is it's a Dennis Allen issue right now. Nothing will feel right while this clown is still running the team. Like we could go fucking Aaron Rodgers in the offseason or like something ridiculous, and shit will still be atrocious.
That's what I'm saying. So like you're middling out, your roster's getting older, and you don't have great head coach. Like, what is the point of just continuing on the trajectory instead of maybe blowing it up? Maybe you find the chance of having a quarterback that could be elite. Like the chance of having that guy, I think, is worth the risk of blowing up the whole team. Because once you find that guy, then you can start to build around. Because if you don't have that guy, you're not winning a Super Bowl. So like, even if the team was amazing, as the Saints teams have been, you still got freaking Andy Dalton and Jameis Winston, and they're not going to win you a bowl. So like, it's just like.
So I battle with this question a lot because I'm a strong believer that like if you don't have a top 5 quarterback, like I've read you guys the Super Bowl winners. I mean, the few exceptions are Joe Flacco, Nick Foles, and maybe another guy. Like complete goobers that
Shout out Trent Dilfer.
snuck into the Super Bowl and won it. You know what I mean? Other than that, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Big Ben, Mahomes, like you name it. They're all like elite level quarterbacks, like top 5 every year guys. Drew Brees. Like, and it's just like, it's tough because you do need to get that guy, but at the same time, it's like you still have to put a product on the field every year. And like, to your point too, it's like the same thing with Tua. It's like, I think you even asked like if Tua is like capable of winning a Super Bowl, and maybe, but like probably not. So like
Highly likely.
the Dolphins have to like still go out and, you know what I mean? I don't know. I don't even know what the answer is. I battle with this question constantly.
I have the answer. You give Sean Payton 10 years, 150 million, whatever the fuck he wants, and Zach Wilson is a Saint. Sorry.
I'm cheating. No, this was the last
At
thing I'll
least
say.
there's a
that-
chance.
Why would you
I don't wanna,
say
like,
that?
I don't want to like drag on the subject or
Because
anything.
Sean Payton's a guru.
But well,
So,
hear me out. I'm glad he said this because it was the last thing I wanted to say. I'm going to pivot to the last thing. Well, because here's the reality situation. As a Saints fan, I saw us bring in Drew Brees having a mediocre, mediocre. Like he came in mediocre. What did we give him that no one else gave him? Great O-line, productive receiving core, smart head coach. And he looked like a fucking Hall of Famer the rest of his career. Go figure. I think this is my point, is that you can have the greatest QB in the world and all these things. The situation sucks. It doesn't matter. Like we show these great teams, these great quarterbacks, like Chargers. They're not winning fucking Super Bowl because it doesn't matter. They don't. You have to have a good,
You have to have both.
continuity filled roster. And so I agree with both of you guys. Like it's like that issue is that I know what the Saints need to do. We can have the greatest. But what they need to do is the first thing is that I'm not going to feel hyped about anything until we have a head coach, because we had a head coach for so long. I know that's the secret. The real secret is having a good, smart head coach. Your quarterback can only do so much without him. Right? If Mahomes was on the Jaguars, that's not a good example because they have. But you get my point.
No, but it's like any team. It's any team. If Mahomes is literally on, I don't even know, 3/4, maybe even a higher percentage of the teams in the NFL, he's not who he is today. He's not winning Super Bowls. He's not winning an MVP at age
if
23.
Mahomes had Brandon Staley and Justin Herbert and Andy Reid, I mean, I
it's a
present
very
hypotheticals.
valid
It's a
thing.
very real point. Who's winning the Super Bowl? Who's winning the games? When
Yeah,
we go head to head?
you
Like,
need-
the game is about
The
who's
situation
coaching it.
is literally everything.
Like players and coaches are like 50-50. I stand on that huge because it's a huge. Player can only do so much.
No,
with what
I'm
they're
going to
getting.
go
Like,
ahead and say it's more towards the coaching, because like you could have, like you said, like Mahomes, like we've seen his ceiling. He's borderline one of the best quarterbacks to ever play the game thus far in his career. And literally, if he did not have Andy Reid or a good coach, he wouldn't be anything. Like coaching is the vehicle that gets these players to be the very best that they can be. And without that, they are essentially nothing.
I agree.
But put Herbert in Miami.
And I'm going to give a random example real quick.
And you'll see
If Kyler
something
Murray gets an
real
elite
fast.
coach, watch the difference in how much we talk about him the next like 3-4 years. Just watch the growth exponent. Like this is my most recent example. We knew Cliff Kingsbury was a fraud from day one. He's proven he's a fucking fraud. Get that man a real coach. We'll see what happens.